Hello and welcome to the Nightstream TV YouTube channel. My name is Trevor and today I want to do my absolute best to make the differences between the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5 as simple and easy to understand. That way you don't have to worry about deciphering all the technical jargon everyone's been throwing out all over the place on the internet. So to boil this down to two key differences that are really going to affect you, the consumer, or the person who's actually purchasing these consoles and playing the games on them, there are two key factors that you need to pay attention to. One is the GPU, and number two is the SSD and the differences in the speed. Let's start off with the one that's probably not going to make the biggest impact, but it is a big difference, and that's going to be the SSD speeds. So Sony has come out and it put in an extremely fast, custom-built SSD exclusively for their PlayStation 5 consoles that is 2 times faster than what you're going to get in the Xbox Series X. So with that, the technical specs are going to come in here because I need you to know what they are so that you can understand the differences between the two. So the PlayStation 5 has a throughput speed of 5.5 gigabytes per second for raw data. If you compress that data down into a smaller format, it can process that at 8 to 9 gigabytes per second. Now, if we compare that to the Xbox Series X, we're talking 2.4 gigabytes per second raw and 4.8 gigabytes per second when it's compressed. So now that you've got through the technical jargon, how does that affect you? Honestly, this is going to be kind of hard to put into terms because it's not going to be a huge difference for you when it's overall how you're going to interact with the game. The one way that you're going to notice is going to be load times. For example, let's say you're playing a game like Forza Horizon, which I know has plagued me drastically when I'm going through and trying to load up into the game for the first time and it's trying to render all those this giant world and it takes forever, right? I know sometimes it takes me anywhere from 30 to 60 seconds just to get into the game, depending on what'll happen with the faster SSD speeds is that load time will be cut down drastically. The Xbox Series X has actually shown this in an actual YouTube video with Austin Evans, where he loaded up State of Decay 2 on 2 separate machines. One was an Xbox One X, and one was a dev kit for the Xbox Series X. The Series X loaded up State of Decay 2 in under 10 seconds. One X, it took over 30 seconds to get it done. And I definitely would suggest checking out that video. So if the Xbox can cut down load times that drastically with an SSD that's literally half the speed of what you're going to get with the Sony PlayStation 5, that's going to be cut even more so. You're probably going to see that go from 10 seconds down to 5 seconds or maybe even faster. So also here we have to take into account the law of diminishing returns. Is at some point, no matter how fast the SSD gets, it will be fast enough that we won't be able to see a difference or really even perceive a difference when it comes to the two consoles. I don't know if we're going to hit that here. We might. It's a very good possibility, especially with the huge difference between these. So keep that in mind when we talk about this later, when we get a little bit more information and we see what the PlayStation 5 can actually do. Now for the big one. This is what's going to make the biggest difference for you and for me and anybody else who is trying to make a decision on which one to buy. It's time to talk about GPUs. So we're going to start off and we're going to break this down into 3 sections. The first one we're going to talk about is teraflops. We use teraflops to determine raw performance for the GPU. And this is going to tell you how powerful it is overall. The PlayStation 5 has 10.28 teraflops of raw power. The Xbox Series X has 12 teraflops. So there's a big difference here. The launch edition of the PlayStation 4 has 4 teraflops of computing power when the GPU. Half of that is the difference between what you get in an Xbox Series X and a PlayStation 5. That is a huge difference. We do not need to underplay this. I know a lot of people are out there saying that there's really not that big of a difference. It's only 2 teraflops. When you put it into a perspective of what that is today and what we have on console, it's huge. It's a big jump over what we have. Alright, so the next number is the computational units that are built into the GPU. The PlayStation 5 has 36 computational units, while the Xbox Series X has 52 computational units. So when we talk about computational units, generally speaking, in a perfect world, more is usually better. The third difference on the GPU is going to be its frequency. So those computational units that we just talked about, the PlayStation 5 computational units run at 2.23 gigahertz, which makes them faster than the Xbox Series X computational units that run at 1.825 gigahertz. So I just threw a lot of numbers at you. Just to put it into a simple term, the higher the number, the faster it is. Basically what this means is that those computational units that we just talked about will be able to process information faster per unit. So how does that affect you? In most cases, you probably won't notice a big difference in this. It really is just more of a design choice that PlayStation has made over Xbox. You may be able to see some faster load times, and that's it. Those are the major differences. The key things you need to take away from this is that Sony is going to have a faster SSD, but a less powerful GPU. And if you had to pick off just these specs on which ones that you would go with, I would choose the Xbox Series X because it's going to have a faster GPU and be able to perform at a higher frame rate with a higher resolution as well. Now that I've given you guys a recommendation on which one I would go with, just based on raw performance and specs, there are a couple things you need to take into consideration before you make a final decision. One is, where are all your friends playing? By that I mean is, if you normally play with 3 other people and they're all buying a PlayStation 5, but you went and bought an Xbox Series X because it's faster, you're going to be playing by yourself, especially if what we see with crossplay decides to just end, which hopefully it doesn't. I really like playing all my games with all my friends, no matter what console they're on. The next thing you need to consider is the video game exclusives that come out to each console. While Xbox has had several good exclusives like Halo and Gears of War, they pale in comparison to the number of exclusives that you're going to get on a PlayStation. And that's something that all of Xbox gamers have had to live with for years. So if you're really interested in the next God of War, or Horizon Zero Dawn, or Last of Us 2, you're only going to find those on PlayStation. So while it may be a weaker console, you're going to get the games that you want to play. So keep that in mind before you just decide which one you're going to look at. I'd also caution you to not get too involved into these specs, because while they may not change, a lot of the differences between the PlayStation 5 and Xbox One or Xbox Series X are really going to depend on how well the developers take advantage of the specific parts that make them different. If the developers are able to take advantage of that into its fullest, you may see some really revolutionary video games that are open world concept, or even better load times when it comes to these open world games. And that's all for my video. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget that I go live every Friday and Saturday night at 9 p.m. Central Time. You can find me here on YouTube. You can also find me at twitch.tv and mixer.com, all of them at Nightstream TV. Come hang out. We'll have some fun. We'll see you next time.